G'day guys, my name's Paul and I'm with Norsk Prepper. We've just about hit 1,000 subs, so I just want to shoot this short video. Short, it'll be about 10-15 minutes, and I just want to introduce myself in a little bit more intimate detail so you know who I am and where I'm from and what motivates me to actually do these videos. So I was born and raised in Queensland, Australia to refugee parents, and my family moved to Australia in the 60s. And they had seen a lot of challenges in life, and we were quite self-sufficient. We'd grown up on the farm and produced a lot of our own food. We had our own cows and milk and meat and vegetables and our own water. We had a bore or a well, so had our own water as well. My mum used to sew her own clothes, and so we were pretty self-sufficient, and we kind of figured that was the way that most people were. But growing up, I started to realize that most people didn't even have to think that way, simply because they had everything that they needed, and whenever they needed something, they could just run to the shop and buy it. They could pay for services, where we had to learn how to do the jobs ourselves. Oh, we've got some chickens here. I'm just out near the chicken coop, so sorry if you hear a little bit of noise. So what I came to realise moving to Norway 16 years ago is I saw that the way that we lived was an exception rather than the rule. And in Norway, most people were very isolated from their community. They depended on large corporations or the state, and they were really cut off from the land in which they lived. Although they would go skiing and hiking and camping out on the land, most people didn't have that connection with the land and the ocean, in that they didn't use it to provide their sustenance. And over time, what I've seen, and this isn't just in Norway or Australia, I've seen in most countries now that the state has increasingly taken the role of priest, of a parent, and even of the employer for most people. In some way or another, we end up dependent on the state. We pay a huge amount of money to the tax man, and we then become very dependent on the state. And if you have a look at what's happening in the world right now, that the politicians, in Norway at least, many of them don't have to pay the same electricity bills that we do. They have their electricity covered by the state, and they get twice the pension we do. So what does that mean? That means that their bad decisions and bad policy has no impact on them. They've isolated and insulated themselves from any of the consequences of bad decisions that they make, that the average person would have to go through. So whose interests are they representing if they have to be subsidized by the state to cover their expenses? They're not representing the interests of the common person. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to do that. They could live in the same way the common person could. So this is a very good indicator that the interests that they are protecting are those of the large corporations. And this selfishness really is what has led us to this problem where we have to be prepping at the moment, because for generations, for at least the last 2 generations, people have been quite self-centered and self-serving in only really trying to get what they can get and trying to secure their own luxurious existence without thinking about the next generation. And it's really coming to a head now when we have a look at the fact that the infrastructure that the previous generations paid to install in countries so that we could have electricity, that infrastructure is being used and being hijacked by large corporations and by the government, so that individuals can make a huge amount of money while the large percentage of people are really struggling. And as soon as you start to see these issues with the energy prices, you're going to come to an understanding very quickly that this impact is going to be huge, because it's going to impact food production and storage. It's going to impact the production of oil and gas products. It's going to create massive impact just even on being able to keep the lights on in your business. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing the early rumblings of a huge transfer of wealth from the small mum and pop stores and the bricks and mortar shops and individuals with their houses that they have a huge loan on. You're going to see all of that being transferred to the large corporations, and it's going to happen quite swiftly. And this is exactly what the World Economic Forum's been talking about when they talk about their Great Reset. And it's not a conspiracy theory. People have to get out of their head of this this time that we're living in now. If you're called a conspiracy theorist, all it means is that you're right before anyone else. Because what we're seeing happening in the world, this isn't a conspiracy theory. The World Economic Forum themselves and the World Health Organization and the UN and the EU, they're all partnered up to reset everything. And they're not creating a great reset for your and my benefit. If they are doing that, they'd do debt forgiveness. They'd just say, well, you know what, we're throwing all the banks out. There's no more debt, and we're turning off the fiat currency, and we're going to go to a gold-backed currency so that people don't have to live in perpetual debt. If they were wanting to do what was best for all of us, that's exactly what they would do. But they're not going to do that. What they're going to do is we're going to end up seeing hyperinflation. We're just seeing the start of it now. And you're going to see a massive transfer of wealth from family-owned farms and houses and properties. All of that's going to be transferred to large corporations that have their ties to the banking industry, so that when there's hyperinflation, they can just write a check and buy everything up. And this is exactly where we're heading. And why? So that when the universal basic income comes in, you're going to have to sell your soul so that you can afford to just survive and feed your family. So we're at a crossroads now where those people who refuse to see the signs, those people who refuse to act, are going to get caught under the wheels of the bus. And those people who are going to act, they've probably already started preparing, and they've probably already started getting out of debt and getting things organized. Now, the motivation for the channel and the reason why I've started to post videos is because I see a lack of people willing to sacrifice themselves and their anonymity and their pleasurable lifestyle and their time and their effort for the greater good. And this is especially a case in the prepping community, because in the prepping community, people want to fly under the radar, so it becomes extremely difficult to set up networks. And as soon as you're labeled a prepper, you then are labeled a conspiracy theorist. As soon as you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, then all of a sudden government agencies start taking an interest in you. People start to think you're crazy. They start to laugh at what you've got to say, and you're dismissed as being a nutter. So someone has to take a hit for the team, and someone has to start saying these things. Someone has to make themselves public. And I had to think long and hard before I started posting these videos, because as soon as I started to do that, I made myself a target. And I didn't do it by accident, and I didn't do it so that I could be famous or well known or anything like that. I did it because people need a signpost. They need someone that they can rally to in order to form a network, so that they can find others who are like them. And if no one wants to do this, and if no one wants to say anything, and everyone wants to fly under the radar, and everyone wants to be anonymous, who's going to do that job? Who's going to take that hit? And so I had to speak to my wife about that. We've got 4 children, and we've been quite involved in the community. So of course I run the risk of being labelled a fruitcake and an idiot, and being treated as such. And in fact, this has already happened. I've had people say, oh, well, you think you're a know-all, and you think that you're better than us, and you think you've got information that the rest of us don't have. And it's come at a cost. It has come at a cost. But I've always seen myself as a guest in this country, in the same way that my parents felt that they were a guest in Australia. And I'm very grateful to Norway. I'm very grateful to the Norwegian people for what they have given me and allowing me to live in their country. And I feel that I owe this country a debt of gratitude and the people within it. And so my goal has been that if in some way I can give back to Norway, if I can help for people to be prepared for the tough times that we absolutely know are coming. Like, we're seeing inflation in a way that we haven't seen it before. It's even making mainstream media in Norway. And if you know anything about Norway, the mainstream media is completely controlled to the absolute nth degree. It's nearly impossible for you to get independent information out there. But even they're starting to talk about what's happening in the world. And you have a look at the Ukraine war, and you have a look at how easily the mainstream media can cause division in society and can cause division in the community. Ukraine's a perfect example of that. There are people arguing online and hating each other's guts over this whole thing of Ukraine. And 90% of the people I speak to don't know anything about the situation or even know that there was war in Ukraine for the last 8, nearly 9 years. They had no interest 8 years ago. My wife and I, we were taking in Ukrainian refugees and helping them and finding them clothes and helping them contact loved ones back in the war zone 8 years ago. And back then, no Norwegians were really informed of what was going on. And the Norwegian government certainly had zero, they had no interest. So being well informed is extremely important in this world where there is so much misinformation and so many people are self-serving. And this is also the case in the prepper community. If you're going to have a look at prepper videos and the various channels that are out there, it's really important to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff, because there are a lot of people that are really out there for social clout and they're trying to grow a brand, and then there's other people who kind of don't care, that they just want to see what's best for people, and they want to try to wake people up to get them ready for what's coming. And I'm going to provide some links to the channels that I recommend in the description below, and check them out. These are channels that I've followed for a very long time and who I feel these people's their heart's in the right place. And there's probably more, but these are the ones that I recommend. Now, from a personal perspective, for the Norwegian subscribers, many of you guys have probably heard me on Dag Thomas's podcast, Podcast Uten Navn, a podcast without a name. And there I share my faith that I'm quite open in that podcast that I'm a personal Christian. And as such, as a Christian and a follower of Christ, and adherent to the tenets of that Christ preached, I believe I have a responsibility not just to my family but to the community in which I live, because every life is valuable and time is extremely valuable. And I believe that we have an opportunity now to be planting the seeds and to be storing up what we're going to need in a season that's going to be very lean. And it's the story of Joseph, where there was 7 years of plenty and then there was 7 years of famine. And we have a time right now where we have huge abundance. Even most people could still afford to put away 12 months worth of food with 2 paychecks, that they could have 12 months of food ready to go. But just as in the story of Joseph warned Egypt. And in 7 years, the people didn't manage to put away what they needed to survive the 7 years of famine. And in the end, they ended up losing everything. They even ended up selling themselves into slavery. The first thing that they did is they sold they bought all the wheat with gold and silver. And then when the money failed, then they sold their livestock and they traded that for the wheat and the grain. And then when that failed, they gave up their land. When that failed, and they had nothing more to give, they sold themselves into slavery. And this is exactly what the World Economic Forum wants. This is where we're headed, guys. And so my dream really, and my hope, is that as many of you that are listening to these videos and you're taking this advice on board, I really hope that you guys are preparing, that you're getting yourselves out of debt, that you're putting away food, that you're building the community, that you're starting to develop these relationships with people, you're getting yourself in shape. Because health comes in many forms. We've got physical health, we've got emotional health, we've got financial health, we've got spiritual health. And if I wasn't a Christian and I was looking at current world events, I would be so depressed about where everything is headed right now. But as a Christian, I know at the end of the day that God wins. The good is going to triumph over evil. And it helps me to stay grounded. It helps me to understand that everything is temporary. Even the plans of evil people are temporary. That they make their plans, but they can only execute their plans to the extent that they're given the authority to do so, because there is one greater authority that has authority over all. And so this gives me a confidence in what it is that I'm doing, and it gives me a confidence in the situation we're seeing now, that ultimately evil is crushed. So this is just a little bit about myself. I hope you guys don't mind. I generally, for those of you that know me personally, and there's quite a few of you that do, my Christian belief comes up in conversation on a semi-regular basis, because it really does drive a lot of what I do. So, guys, I just want to encourage you to just don't give up, keep moving forward, and I'll do my best to keep posting videos. I've had a bit of a break from posting videos simply because I've just been so busy with preparing and meeting people. We take guests constantly in my home, so the whole goal really for us has been to really just to expand our network as much as we can, and we've been working hard to do so. So guys, I just want to encourage you, don't give up, keep going, build your communities, get yourselves out of debt, get yourselves organized. We're facing a really, really tough time, and you really have to brace for what's coming. All the signs are pointing towards a collapse at this point. The energy sector is a very early indicator, and it's going to have an impact on absolutely everything. So anyway, guys, don't be scared. Be prepared. Get yourselves organized, and start rallying together. Start helping each other out. Let's depend on the communities rather than the government. Let's depend on one another. Let's get back to depending on God. Let's place ultimate truth, and let's place God above everything else, and the things that he tells us to value and to take care of, such as each other, and such as the land that we've been given, such as the animals that are under our care, such as the children who we have to take care of for the next generation. Because at the end of the day, we're only here for a very short time on this earth, and we have to leave something behind that people are going to be able to take and inherit, and we really don't want to leave a mess. And at the end of the day, it's been bad decisions from government and corporations that have gotten us into this mess. So they have no way to get us out. It's going to come down to you and I, and we are not to wait for heroes for this. You need to be the hero of your own story. So anyway, guys, this is a little bit about myself and my motivations, and I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see what we do when we hit 10,000 subscribers. But anyway, guys, stay tuned for the next video, and I wish you guys all the best. Thanks for subscribing, thanks for sharing, and thanks for leaving me a comment and a thumbs up. We really do appreciate you guys. Good luck with everything. All right, see you later.